Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming today. We're going to be telling you a story. First of all, obviously, we need to meet our villain. We've dwelled slightly on the villain, some of the lowlights, but someone gave us a microphone and a stage, so we sort of felt slightly duty-bound.
So yeah, this is our villain. As we all probably know, human activity and the CO2 emissions that we're generating is warming our planet. And this is something we need to stop. We need to act to reduce the rate at which we're emitting CO2, and we need to stop it and hit net zero. The longer we delay, the sort of sharper actions we're going to need to take. So as we see here, this dotted line hitting the axis of the 1.5 degree temperature rise, that represents our room for maneuver, and we have increasingly less and less room for maneuver, and hence the need to act fast and decisively.
And this is some of the things that I think, well, oh, we've got loads of time, and then I remind myself these things exist. So these are the heat waves that have happened over the last 100 years. We've got 1976, and we've got now. This is the heat wave that hits this year. And there's a sense that, oh, we've always had heat waves. When I was a kid, I remember it was really hot. Nothing's really changed. But when you look at the global picture around these, it's dramatically different.
And sometimes this stuff can seem a bit abstract, can seem a bit out there, a line on a graph. But it's beginning to affect our world, the real life, the things in front of us. Obviously, last summer in the UK, we had a very strong heat wave, totally anomalous temperatures that we shouldn't be seeing in the summer. Also, last summer, I traveled to France, to the French Alps, Chamonix and Mont Blanc, where there's the Mer de Glace, or Sea of Ice glacier. And as you descend, as you go down the valley into the glacier, they have marked off the level of that glacier over various years. So this was its level in 1990. And on the base, the sort of gray that you can see, that is the glacier. It's kind of covered in grit, but beneath that is ice. And as you descend through this, you can see all the levels marked in time. And the depletion of that glacier, when you see it up front, is staggering. The impact we're having is just really profound.
And the other one that keeps me awake at night is that you hear the argument, it's inevitable we're going to use all this carbon, so let's rip through it really quickly, and then when that's happened, it'll be the perfect time for change. So this graph shows this is what we've used up to 2000, this is what we've used in the last 15 years, this is our sort of remaining carbon budget in the middle before we get to the 2% rise, and then this is everything that's still in the ground. This is what we could use, and obviously, if we were to use that, we're going to go way past tipping points in terms of the climate and straight into nightmare scenarios.
And just in case, catastrophic climate change wasn't enough reason to act, we also have energy security. So obviously, we've seen huge instability in our energy supply, what seems like sabotage on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline carrying gas from Russia into Europe. And we've also seen huge price volatility. So threats to the gas supply driving up prices of the wholesale markets, leading to high prices for the end consumer, driving people into energy poverty. So our need to replace our current carbon-intensive, highly volatile, fossil fuel-based energy supply is just clear.
And this is our opportunity. This is, as RES, 77% of the emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, are coming from generating energy. So if we can do something about that quickly, then there's a huge potential for us to have a really dramatic impact.
So what do we need to do? Well, we need to act, and we need to scale what we're doing on renewable energy rapidly. And as we saw on the curve earlier with the CO2 emissions, we haven't got much time to spare. So taking the right steps and doing the right things is going to be critical.
So who are we? My name is Ben Dodd. I'm a co-founder of Armakuni. I'm quite tall. I used to tell bad jokes, and then I had 3 children, and they turned into dad jokes, which is an acceptable form of bad jokes. I also work with really interesting companies, and as I start to work for these companies, I learn their domain, and what is great about that is it's a new genre of terrible dad jokes. So this is the warning I'm going to give you. This is time to clear your hands to either put your head into your hands, or you may want to take a photo to keep that joke for later. So our first joke is, What do wind turbines think of renewable energy? Anyone? They're big fans.
Well done.
Good groan. I think we're
Nice,
going to
Ben.
build on this groan.
Nice, Ben, thank you. So yeah, I'm Peter Stewart, I'm Technical Director at RES. I'm passionate about using technology to help us scale up renewable energy. I'm evidently not as tall as Ben, but I am a dad to twins. And actually, this is us in the Mer de Glace Glacier. Eventually, when you go past all those depressing signs saying how much depleted, you do get to Glacier, and there's a nice ice cave that you can go and sit and take a nice picture. A little bit about RES. So we are a global renewable energy company. We've been in the business for 40 years, so pretty much since the start of renewable electricity. We're headquartered in the UK. We develop from greenfield renewable energy projects, so wind farms and solar farms. We build them, and then we operate them through their lifetime. And we work across technology, so wind, solar storage, and most recently, green hydrogen. So in my time at RES, I've actually been there 20 years-ish, almost half of the company's history, and I've seen it grow and scale up and build more and more wind farms and more solar farms, which is great. That's really positive. But that has brought its own challenge. How do we manage all of these wind farms when we've built them? Which is already challenging, and we know we're going to build more of them. And they're getting more complex. There's more things to do with the grid to make them interact with the grid appropriately. So this means that we need to innovate to remain market leaders. We need to invest in our technology and invest in our people to be ready for the response being the build-out of renewable energy in response to the climate threat.
Great. So what's on the menu in terms of this talk today? The talk was about the pipelines you need to get to net zero. And there's a few different types of pipeline. First of all, we've got that flow of work. How do we make sure that people are working in the right way, they are interacting, collaborating, that they are aligned, that everyone is working on the same thing in the same way? Do we have those technical flow? We've got flow from centrally out to the infrastructure and the turbines and et cetera on site, and then that data that is coming back from all of those assets that we've got. How do we have the flow of expertise? RES is full of all sorts of people who have got amazing insight into the renewables world, how it works, how to make it work better, and we need to flow that into technology in ways that we can exploit it. We've also got the flow of data, so there's lots of data that is being generated, but how does that transform into wisdom that can be used, and ultimately, how can that start to create new products that can be then directly flowing out to customers? So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
So this is kind of a representation of what we used to look like in terms of RES's technology. So obviously it was orange. It was also a big block. So it was a big monolith. So in a way, there was plenty of good things about the way we were organized. Everyone was dedicated. Everyone was working hard. We're delivering for our business. But what we also knew is it wasn't going to be right for the future. It wasn't going to scale. It wasn't going to adapt. So there was a need to reorganize to achieve better flow in our team going forwards. So working with AK, we've evolved to something a bit more like this. So it's splitting our monolith into layers, each layer dealing with a different step in the data journey and adding value on each one of those layers, from acquiring the raw data from site to integrating and standardizing it, to running our various analytics and generating those data-driven insights to help us optimize our assets. If we're able to optimize our assets, we can add additional percentage points on their energy generation by improving how they operate, their control strategies, and also making sure that they're running all of the time and not left broken, waiting for a part to fix them, et cetera. And at the top of the pyramid is control. If we can get all the data right, then we can actually step into things like autonomous control. For example, wake steering is a technique that we're using so that the wind turbines work collaboratively to maximize their energy output. Then we flow all of this up to Uno, which is our platform, which we make available to our customers, which are typically financial institutions which invest in renewable energy projects, and use that platform to surface the value of what we're doing to them so that they can sort of touch and feel all the good work that RES is doing to optimize the performance of their fleet. So what are the key reflections on this? So the first thing I would say is, I'm sure many people in the room have been through this, but splitting a monolith is really challenging. it's actually really confusing and it's really disorientating. You're used to being able to triangulate your position from the way things are, and suddenly you make a big change and you feel unsure. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the right decision? There's a lot of second guessing and there's a lot of room for doubt. And there's many different ways to do it, but if we can evolve to smaller teams that each have a kind of very clear purpose, then we can build faster, and we can embed those high-quality software practices that allow us to be agile and to respond to the need of our customers and our business. Of course, it's also very important to share knowledge between teams as quickly as possible. And when you split a monolith, you've often got teams learning the same lesson sort of in parallel, and communicating that quickly and effectively between teams is really key.
So we are huge fans of team topologies. This is a similar diagram drawn in a slightly different way. So we have these series of teams that are all streamlined teams that have a sense of their customer, can talk to their customer, can understand what they would like and get feedback on whether they are getting that. But there is also a clear set of interactions. So as these teams have been moved from a monolith into separate teams, you can have a clear conversation about what is the interaction between these teams, what is the service that they provide, what is the timelines around those interactions. So, and these teams are aligned for a low cognitive load set of interactions. They are providing clear services to other teams, flowing up to Uno, which is the single pane of glass that the customers interact with a lot of the time. But that also is a platform that is providing services back to the rest of the teams. And that could be things like authentication and those sorts of things. So this has been a great visual currency to allow those teams who are all learning, changing, to have the similar set of conversations and reason about where they are and where they're going. But that was a very useful diagram. It is useful, but it is built on this foundation of other activities and capabilities. And that's what we've been working with the teams to add in along this journey. So it's important that you've got that organization representation, but there is this body of other stuff that we are also working on and considering. And really, what's important is the end state is that we gain this sensing capability. It is not helping organizations draw their org chart and that org chart be good for the next 10 years. It's how can you have the first iteration of that organization chart and then over time be thinking, where are the awkward interactions, where haven't we got it quite right, and then we can start to change over time. This is a really great infographic. All the links are going to be at the end, but this is a great infographic of that journey, and we've been working with organizations for training that is built around this, which has been really interesting.
So yeah, what Ben says to me, sometimes I like to think about it as refactoring teams alongside refactoring code. So as you're evolving your organizational structure, you learn. You learn that maybe what you thought was the right split between teams is actually the wrong split. Maybe two teams need to be combined for synergy, or teams need to be separated to give that kind of accountability boundaries that are correct. So aligning our teams for flow is the goal, leading to lower cognitive load so that everybody knows what they're doing and what they're accountable for. And having this data flow, not jumping to analytics with data that still needs to be integrated or cleaned up is key. So again, where everybody knows where they are in that journey of that data.
Warning people, don't joke break. This is a surge of electricity walks into a bar and the barman says, anyone? Electricity fans?
This is pretty niche.
Why the long phase? Okay? No, fine. It's slightly better grown. I feel like the...
Joking aside, we like to think about the journey of our data from our asset to our systems. And that leads us to think about things like this, which is, this is a gearbox. Ben currently doesn't have any gearbox jokes, so he's in the market for one. Anyone's got one. But what is this? So this is a big rotating machine. It's got loads of teeth on it, these gearbox teeth. These can develop little cracks in them. If those cracks get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, eventually those teeth fall off. And if a big teeth coming off a gearbox in a rotating machine, it can cause quite a lot of damage. So another way to think about this gearbox is as a data generating machine. So we have vibration sensors on gearboxes, sensing the amount of vibration in the system. And as these little cracks develop, we can pick up the signatures of that developing crack. This is called condition monitoring. And that can raise an alarm to say, you need to go, you need to check this gearbox tooth out. And instead of a massive repair or a massive replacement of a gearbox, which can take months to plan, you have someone going in for a sort of small remediation on the gearbox tooth. So spending money on the data to avoid a massive expense on a major component replacement.
Yeah, and I think I'd also add that this is, you end up with quite extreme cross-functional teams. You get teams that can reason about the data and the software and the code and can try to prevent those sorts of things, but you're also bringing together a huge organization of you're actually the engineers that are building, deploying these things in the field and how they can work together to build a better set of data products to reduce that sort of downtime or increase the amount of electricity that's being created. I think this is also just a point. Obviously, these wind turbines are obviously in a field on top of a hill at sea. And there is an opportunity for us to reason about them, the software that they're using, in exactly the same way that we would a Kubernetes running in a data center somewhere. So what's been really great to see is a really fast flow of configuration and software out to the edge, out to IoT and these things as an opportunity to get more, better, high-quality data flowing back into the data centers so we can use AI and those sorts of things to reason about how we could make it more efficient and ultimately generate more electricity.
So what have we learned from that? Well, firstly, everybody loves a gearbox. Also that even physical tricky systems we can embed continuous delivery paradigms in these domains, which is great. And also that we have bidirectional flow. So we have data coming from the assets into the cloud, but also algorithms going from the cloud down to the assets.
And when I saw the screen set up like this morning, I could not help but do a little bit of Steve Jobsing. So one more joke, imagine the polo neck. So this is a real low point on the joke front. And it is the last one. I think it's the ultimate dad joke because it's got dad in it. So son says, Dad, can you tell me what a solar eclipse is? Dad says, no, son. No, meant to laugh. Come on, people.
Okay, so in summary, what do we think we've learned? Well, if we can organize our teams into these distinct units, so everybody understands what they're doing and everything fits together, we can reduce the cognitive load and achieve flow. The other thing I'd say, coming back to splitting the monolith, is it is so confusing, and your grand design for the brilliant new architecture you're going to have after you split your monolith is almost definitely wrong. And as you split things up, you're going to learn, and you're going to need to change. And spotting those moments when you need to change, when you have to say, hold on, guys, I know I told you it should be like this, but actually we were totally wrong. It needs to be like this other way. Listening for those signals when there's the little bells going off saying, we've got it slightly wrong is really important. Any environment, even the renewable energy domain can apply CD. We can have, the Shangri-La of committing a change and it going straight into production and getting value from it right away. And we need to feedback early and often so we learn those lessons and improve as fast as we can.
So the prize, if we think back to our villain, what is the prize for this? So bringing creativity and joy to the world of engineering is the Armakuni strapline. There's an interview that Elon Musk gave, rightly or wrongly, whatever you think of Elon at the moment. But we need a future that we can not be sad about. We can't think of it just an endless cycle of problems to be solved that are doom and gloom. So I think if you can find yourself in this sort of environment, working with Res, working towards this really inspiring vision, but also you can be working in this sort of way. If you can have a sensing organization that can leverage those foundations, but also be changing how it works, what those interactions are continuously, it's a really empowering, exciting place to be. And you can find yourself getting out of the bed in the morning thinking, fantastic, let's get going.
Yeah, and I'd really like to thank AK for their support in helping us on that journey. And obviously, at the beginning, we started with some maybe quite depressing, quite sad visions of the future and climate change. But there is also hope, and there is an awful lot we can do. We need to roll up our sleeves and get it done. But we know what to do. Renewable energy is a viable solution to the energy gap. And at RES, we believe in a future where everyone has access to zero carbon energy. So thank you.
Great. So one last thing. This is a link to a feedback form. I am in the market for a gearbox joke. If you do nothing else, please add that. Yeah, we've got one down here. So I'd be really grateful for your feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you.